why co-brand cards are relevant. Who's the user? Who does it benefit? So the starting point for any proposition is always the customer. And for the customer, the interaction and engagement, the benefits that arise out of a proposition that gives special pricing, offers, rewards, the opportunity to have a faster checkout, maybe a priority queue, being able to use some feature functionality that otherwise they may not get easy access to. All of these are big benefits as users. The second party in the conversation here is the merchant. The merchant who really is a large brand looking to deepen engagement with their customer base. Sometimes may run their own kind of a reward platform or a loyalty program. And it's very beneficial to really look at how the brand can combine a card proposition to deepen that engagement with their customers. The third and critical party here is, of course, the bank, who's the issuer of the card. And for the bank, it's an acquisition of some great relationships. And on one side is the merchant, a wonderful corporate relationship. On the other side, it's an opportunity to acquire users to whom otherwise they may or may not have had access, and to then offer the users a wide range of services that the bank offers. So together between the brand, the bank, and the consumer, it's a win-win for everybody, deepening relationship, engagement, and creating a wow experience overall through and through. And it's also financially beneficial for all parties. And this is really where the role of the network comes in. From the network standpoint, the investment and the approach is to really ensure that the experience for each one of the parties is superlative. The role of the network is to ensure the user experience using leading edge tech, whether, for example, in the card world, it is to do with contactless payments, offline payments, payments on the go, looking at a wide range of categories where the card can provide benefits over and above the specific category that the brand may belong to. And also looking at the reach and depth, right? The kind of locations in the country, the kind of domestic, international acceptance, e-commerce, all of these elements start playing a very important role in the experience for each one of these parties. The merchant, quick settlement, the bank in terms of overall experience, as well as the user. Now, internationally, the co-brand space has been around for a while, and there are some very popular and favorite categories. You have the traditional winners like airlines, hospitality, fuel, and these have been very big in the Indian environment as well. But we are also having some interesting plays as digital booms. E-commerce has become the real big futuristic play right now. And interesting categories which will start looking at niche segments associated with retail, associated with digital, associated with apps, associated with probably a combination of all of these in the phygital space. These will all start coming to the fore. So there's a lot in it for everybody, and a lot of customer experience to get created from a total experience standpoint, and a very good business models to be evolved. So look forward. I'm really looking forward to see how the market evolves as we move forward from here.
Thank you to NPCI for inviting me to have my views on the benefits of co-branding. Co-branding, to my mind, is a very strategic long-term partnership which a credit card player, a bank gets into with any other retail player or B2B player. We have seen multiple examples of these relationships in the market. Uh, they have been very popular co-brand relationship between banks and fuel companies, between banks and large retailers, and of course between banks and airlines. The co-brand relationships have been popular all across the world. Now, while these are very long-term strategic relationships, while getting into it, bank or a credit card company or the partner, they have to be very careful in understanding and putting their goal and objective onto the table. It is extremely important that the vision and the objective of both the partner matches with each other. Because if it does not match, then that particular relationship will not be successful in the long run. To give you an example, if one partner is looking at, let's say, increasing acquisition in the short term or increasing profitability while in the short term, while the other partner is looking at building loyalty in the long term, both these goals will be contra at some point of time and the conflict will happen. The second very important, very, very critical thing in co-brand building co-brand relationships is looking at the brand fit. You need to be very sure or very careful while building that partnership that the brands, both the brands, they of are appealing to the same or broadly largely the same psychographic TG. Uh, there should not be major dissonances between the value systems of the brand. So it is extremely critical that while getting into a co-brand relationship, these two parameters are looked at. In fact, once you get into a co-brand relationship, it is always expected that the you have to do acquire new customers, and the banks and the credit card companies get into these relationships essentially because there will be a loyalty partner who has a set of loyal customers, and you want to acquire those customers through their channel. So this becomes a very good way of acquiring new customers at a very reasonable or a very low cost, because the customer acquisition is typically one of the larger costs for any organization. So once you get into the acquiring of new customers, and while you are doing that, one should be very careful that the products which are designed, the value proposition of those products has to be very focused, because the co-brand team is acquiring these customers or getting these new customers, and when the customers are getting on board, they are expecting a certain set of value proposition and service, which has to be very focused towards use of that particular partner. Again, to give you an example, this has been very successfully done by a lot of players in case of airline industry, where whatever the customer spends gets converted into air miles, and those air miles can be used for traveling by the customer. So in case of airlines, in case of, let's say, fuel co-brands, a lot of these value propositions have been very carefully constructed and are very focused. So the design is extremely critical while you are creating these products, because that helps in not only acquiring new customers but also retaining these customers, because that is the ultimate goal sometimes from both parties, because loyalty is very critical, and co-brands not only acquire good customers, they also build loyalty in the long run. The third part is that while those two players or co-brand players come into together, they have to ensure that the value that each player is bringing comes together and is complementary in nature. So 1 plus 1 has to become 3, because if it does not become 3 and it reductive, or it becomes 1.5 or 1.75, then it is not helpful. So the values that both the players or both the co-brand partners they bring together has to be value accretive and not value reductive. It has to add to the overall scheme of things, because that is the only way wherein both the partners will be able to not only fulfill their customer objectives, but also fulfill their financial objectives. So to do that, the value has to be accretive, and each player ha ha has to bring in whatever is their core strengths. And more complementary they are, the better it is, because that adds more value to the overall scheme of things. While there have been co-brands which have been successful and there have been co-brands which have not done so well, one has to be very careful, and there are certain lookouts which should always be there. A joint team a kind of steering committee of both the co-brand partners should continuously monitor these co-brands and should also look at each stage, whether it is 6 monthly or annually, whether the objectives with which the partners had set out to do this partnership, whether that is working well or not, or whether it is achieving that or not. And they should also give in their best to create, because once you get into those partnership, as I initially stated, it is a long term strategic partnership. Things will go wrong, things will go right. So people have to trust and come together to be able to take care of those hurdles, because sometimes we have seen it is only after the initial hurdles are over and initial things are taken care of that the co-brand really becomes successful and becomes of not only of scale, but becomes the best for the customer in terms of the customer value proposition also. So these were some of the thoughts which I had on benefits of co-branding. It eventually, as I stated earlier, it not only helps both the brands, it also helps the customer, both from a value proposition as well as from a financial perspective, to achieve each other's goal and while keeping the customer loyalty with you. If one just has to take care of these minor parameters and criteria, and you will have a successful co-brand with you. Thank you very much.